Awesome. Hey, Patrick. How you doing, man?
I'm pretty good. How you doing?
And, I'm happy that you guys are back. It's been a hot second.
It's weird. Yeah, I didn't realize it took so long. It was funny because you know, we put out a song and a bunch of my friends were like, "Oh, you guys are back." You came back, and I'm like, "We didn't go anywhere." I didn't really feel like it was like, you know, pandemic was just a time warp. And then we did Hella Mega Tour with Green Day and Weezer, and that took up so much time. It wasn't like we were recording on that. It was like it didn't really feel like I was, you know, waiting around or anything. But then we put out the song, and it's like, oh, I guess it's been like 5 years.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. But I'm looking forward to hearing more. So much for Stardust coming out in just over a month on March 24th. And tell me a little bit about with this album. I mean, you guys went back to working with Neil Avron on this album.
Yeah,
I mean, he four your first four records, and then you kind of shifted away from that, but now shifting back.
yeah. Well, it's weird because you know, Neil had been kind of known, I think, for rock records. And but he in the interim though he's become a pretty, like, he's won a bunch of Grammys as a mixer, right? So he's become a mixer, really. He doesn't really produce a lot of albums anymore. So it became this thing of like we weren't sure if we could even get him anymore. He's a good friend of ours, but he's busy. He's like mixing, he's like one of the first people that you call to mix things. Um so it was kind of a long thing of trying to get him on board, honestly. And then the other thing was I had this feeling that he could do anything, because I didn't really want to do a straight ahead rock record. And it's not. When you hear the record, it's not a rock record, but it's not like I think it's hard to describe until you hear it. It's a Fall Out Boy record. It's not a strictly, like, it's not like a Foo Fighters record or something. It's which, because we already have a Foo Fighters.
Yeah.
Um, but but I think everybody was a little bit concerned that because Neil was so known for rock, that was what it was going to be. And I was like, no, trust me, he can do anything. And we got together, and when everybody got together, it was like, oh, this is amazing. It was like, and it was also, he's such a good friend of ours too. It was like, it was amazing to just hang out with him again, and he's a genius too. So it was great.
I mean, and that's kind of something that I wanted to talk about too, because and you're kind of touching on it a little bit with, not just going in and making just a straight rock record, but, it seems that just from the songs that we've heard so far, it is a little more guitar
Yeah.
driven. And then you see the upcoming tour, you guys are bringing out Bring Me the Horizon as well. We're definitely way more in the rock lane. So, is that kind of, where like things are shifting for you guys a little bit as you evolve the sound?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely missed guitar. It's weird because there's guitar all over the last three records. But people would be like, "Oh, where's the guitar? Where's the guitar?" I'm like, "It's there. I swear it's there." But then I was listening back to it, and I think a lot of it's just choices and mixing, and kind of the way things, sounds at the time. I think you kind of like lose it in the shuffle. Whereas Neil kind of he has a kind of methodology where he'll kind of take two guitar tracks and really crank them. And so I think just naturally he makes more guitar driven records. And so there's a lot more guitar that you'll hear. It's not more guitar than there's been on the last few records, but you'll hear it a lot more. Um, but really, it was just kind of like, you know, we I was experimenting on the last few records with what you could do with technology, with what you could. I just wanted to see, I would cut up drums. Andy would play drums, and I would like cut them up and loop them and change the speed, and or playing with vocal effects and things. I would do so many things in the computer, just whatever, and it's really fun, and it was a cool experiment. But we kind of did that, and I'm kind of like, I was kind of like missing, spending, 2 hours, turning knobs on the amplifier to get it just right, that kind of thing. So
Yeah. Well, I mean, you kind of hear that sound and like, I guess for lack of a better word, it's like almost the more like authentic slash raw, like get together, do it in the studio together instead
Yeah.
of, trying too much through Zoom or anything like that. But um,
Well, which was difficult. It's funny you
yeah,
mentioned the Zoom thing because that was the start of the record, because we started working on the record probably about 3 years ago. And we had to do it on Zoom at first. And it really didn't, I mean, I do think that was one of the reasons it took a while was because it kind of sucks. It's not great to make a
yeah.
record over Zoom. So
Yeah, and it kind of all plays into. I mean, like I do want to say for this year specifically, congrats! 20 years since the debut album would Take This to Your Grave.
yeah,
You guys are back on Fueled by Ramen, so there seems to be a lot of that mentality of like almost like going back, with
yeah.
all of this.
It's weird. It wasn't really a plan, but I do notice that. It was. I mean, it was just coincidence because we had finished up our contract, and we were kind of floating out there. I don't know that we were really even worried about a record contract, but a really good friend of ours, Johnny Minardi, who's at Fuel Ramen, he's like I don't know how to describe it that people will understand because you always say, "Oh, this is an old friend." Like he was at like our basement shows and stuff. Like he was one of our oldest friends as a band, and somehow he ended up working in the industry and working at Fuel by Ramen. He was kind of like the second our contract was up. He's like, "Hey, you guys free? Hey, you guys, and and so it was something that it was kind of meant to be. And then I totally forgot about 20 years. I'm not really a nostalgic person. I don't really think about the past all that much. Um, but yeah, we were going out and it's like, oh man, it has been 20 years. And
Yeah.
when did that happen too? That's crazy. I don't.
It is truly wild, but like, and I saw, you guys did, the surprise show, back in the hometown and everything, and checking out the set list. It's like, okay, well, it's like breaking out songs from that first record, playing Saturday, which it's been years, and
Yeah.
all of that. So I kind of want to talk about, with the tour, just kind of the dynamics of everything. Of course, with Joe taking a step back, focusing on his mental health,
Mhm.
inevitably change how things are going to go for that. But also when you have, support from a band like Bring Me the Horizon, like how do you kind of shift your, your overall mentality of like, this is what the set is going to be, because I mean, in the past, it's like, you've done tours with, Wiz Khalifa.
Yeah.
It's kind
You
of
know,
all over the town.
I think we've always kind of had this mentality, and I think it's just kind of us where I don't think we really um, stop and think about it too much. Like I'm not going to make a more overtly rock set than it already is. I think one of the things that people are surprised by a lot with us is that a lot of the songs that you think of as pop songs, when we go out and play them next to Take This to Your Grave or Cork Tree, when you play them live, it's all one thing. We're still the same band, and it's that was there was this really grizzled kind of biker guy who he was somebody's buddy or dad or something, and he was backstage one time and he's like, I didn't know it would be so rock, man. I didn't know it'd be so rock and roll. He was really kind of taken aback by the fact that a lot of these songs that I think he associated with being pop. I think when you come to a Fall Out Boy show, we're not, you know, we're not. I don't want to name names, but we're not one of those bands. I think people assume that we're more of a polished pop band, and uh, and so I think that's one of the things that's cool is that like I don't think we're really going to change much at all in terms of like the way that we present it. I think we're going to go out and do our thing, and I think there'll be different songs. We'll play different songs because we change it up a little bit every tour. Um, but I do think that it's important to just kind of be who you are because I think that's what makes it more real anyway. I think it'd be. I've been I always thought it'd be weird to go out there and be like, we're making a rock record, man. What I mean? I think like we are a rock band, but we're also a pop band.
Yeah, definitely. Well,
We're
I
a
do
pop
want
band
to
that has
ask, I mean,
explosions on
because
stage.
There you go. There's explosions, there's fire.
Yeah.
It's rock and roll. I love it. Well, I am looking forward to the show. I mean, the closest you guys are going to be to Louisville is actually going to be in Cincinnati coming up on July 15th. Be so much for Tour Dust with Bring Me the Horizon and Royal and the Serpent. I do want to ask, and this is something that you might have an answer, you might not, just because this one's going to take a little bit of thought. But I like to kind of get a little bit deeper into the songs and the set list, so to speak. So, when you're putting together your set list, there's always the staple songs that, you have to play or people are going to, start throwing beer bottles on stage because, they get all pissed off or anything. And then, some newer ones or some old, whatever. What's the one song that you wish you could put in the set, but always just doesn't make the cut? It's just one you
That's
always...
a really good. That's a great question because I feel like there's ones for different reason. I wasn't sure where you were going to go with that. If you were going to say the one that because sometimes you put a song in the set and that you've always wanted to play, and then you play it and it just goes over like a bag of rocks. Like people just don't. You're like, oh, this one's great, and then you play it and no one cares.
Yeah.
There's a song that's really difficult to do because there's so many layers of stuff. It's kind of a very studio song. That I love playing, or I love the song so much, but it's very difficult to pull off live because there's only four of us, and it's Head First Slide into Cooperstown on a Bad Bet. I love that song, and I still have on my pedal board, I still have a pre-programmed thing for it, like ready, like maybe one of these days, but it's a really difficult song to do, and we've done it before. And I don't know, but I'd love to play it again if we could. So maybe we'll see. So let's see if I can talk everybody into it. But
yeah, well, I mean, if you are going to do it, then I recommend July 15th in Cincinnati. So
awesome,
we have the chance. But I'm very excited for the tour. I'm very excited for the album. Loving the songs that we already have now, and we're playing the hell out of Love from the Other Side here at Alt 105.1. So we're just again happy to have you back with some new stuff. Yeah.
Well, thanks a lot.
So again. Yeah, the new album, again, going to be coming out March 24th. So much for Stardust. And Patrick, appreciate the time, man, as always.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Thanks for having me.